Last summer, I was a freelance photographer. I was 32, often working late in the city, looking for inspiration in the vibrant urban life. One evening, I was in an unfamiliar neighborhood, snapping pictures of street culture. I had just wrapped up a long day when I noticed something small on my camera bag. It was an Apple AirTag. I hadn't put it there. I felt uneasy. Maybe it was lost? I tried to shake the feeling off, but a strange itch lingered at the back of my mind. In the days that followed, things changed. I started seeing cars I didn't recognize parked outside my apartment. They sat there, engines off, windows tinted. I glanced out my window, and my heart raced every time. I noticed vague faces in the backgrounds of my photos, too. They were just outlines, but they made me uneasy. Was someone following me? It felt paranoid, but I couldn't help it. Then I got messages from numbers I didn't know. They chilled me. You should be careful. I wanted to ignore them, but I couldn't. What if someone really needed help? I decided to keep quiet for now. Maybe it was just a prank? Still, a weight settled in my chest. One night, the sun began to set, and city lights flickered on. I wanted to go out again, even though I was scared. I needed to capture something new. I wandered deeper into that neighborhood. I felt like prey, not a photographer. My breathing quickened. I came across a street mural. After I took a picture, I noticed a figure lingering in the corner. I zoomed in, and shaking hands caught my focus. They stood perfectly still, staring at me, expressionless. My stomach twisted. I wanted to flee but forced myself to approach them. I asked if they were okay, but they didn't respond. Just that intense stare, like they were waiting for something. Then they spoke. You shouldn't have picked it up. I froze. My heart raced. I looked around, and I realized nobody was there. Just darkness creeping in, laughter echoing in the distance. My fear began to feel real. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the ground. I finally turned and ran back towards the main street. The city was alive, but I felt the cold creeping in. I couldn't shake this feeling of being watched. I didn't want to look back, but I did. The figure was gone, but I still felt eyes on me. I rushed home, heart pounding. I slammed the door and locked it tight. That night, I couldn't sleep. The glowing screen of my phone was haunting. I checked for new messages but found nothing. Just that silence. I hugged my knees to my chest, reminding myself it wasn't real. But deep down, I knew something was off. Then, I heard a knock at my door. It was quiet, but I felt it echo in my bones. I held my breath. My heart raced again. What waited for me on the other side? I didn't want to find out. The knock came again, a soft but insistent sound that made my pulse race. Who would be knocking at this hour? I glanced at the clock. It was well past midnight. I resisted the urge to peek through the peephole. What if it was someone I didn't want to see? The memory of that eerie figure haunted me as I waited, frozen in place. After a few moments, the knocking stopped. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I wanted to breathe easy, but the air felt thick with an unnameable fear. Then I heard a voice. It was faint but clear. I know you're in there. It sent chills down my spine. I pressed my back against the door, trying to become as small as possible. Who was this person? How did they know I was inside? My thoughts raced. Had they been watching me? I grabbed my phone and considered calling for help. But what would I say? Someone is knocking? No. I felt stupid even thinking about it. Instead, I stood there, my hand trembling around my phone. Then I heard it again. Please, I just want to talk. There was a different tone now, something almost pleading. But fear overruled my curiosity. I couldn't open that door. I wouldn't. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, shattering the tense silence. I quickly looked at it. A message. It was from an unknown number again, but this one was different. They will come for you if you don't give it back. That sentence made my heart drop. Give what back? My hands shook as I tried to decipher what it meant. Was it referring to the AirTag? But that didn't make sense. I had just found it. Why would anyone want it back? My mind raced with possibilities. I wanted to call the police but felt this knot of fear trap me. What if this was all related? What if they were waiting for me to make a move? I peered out of the window, thinking I might see the figure again or someone else lurking below. Nothing. Just darkness and the occasional flicker of a street lamp. But when I turned back, I froze. The door handle was slowly turning. I gasped and took a step back, my breath caught in my throat. The door was locked, so whoever it was couldn't just walk in. But the reality of someone trying was enough to send my heart thundering again. The door rattled when someone outside pushed against it. Please, you don't understand. I can help you. That frantic voice was more urgent now. It sounded desperate, but I couldn't trust it. I backed away, ready to run to the nearest window. And then everything went dark. The lights flickered and cut out completely, plunging the apartment into an engulfing blackness. Panic surged inside me. My phone screen lit up the room slightly, and I quickly grabbed it. The brightness hurt my eyes, but I needed to see. That's when I noticed it. There was a shadow moving along the wall near the door, creeping closer. The shadow stopped. My breath hitched as I strained to make out any details. The light from my phone was dim, barely illuminating the wall. Instinctively, I pressed myself against the corner of the room, trying to make myself invisible. I fought the urge to scream. Then, I heard something, a shuffle, a soft drag of fabric against the floor. It seemed to be shifting, returning to the door where the knocking had been. Suddenly, I realized this wasn't just a trick of my imagination. Someone, or something, was here. I glanced at my phone again, desperate to see the time. Just moments had passed since the lights went out, but it felt like an eternity. The eerie quiet was deafening. I wondered if I should attempt to sneak out or if I'd be met by whatever was prowling in the dark. Please. I need you to listen. The voice broke through the darkness again, clearer this time. You don't know what you have. The sense of dread wrapped around me tighter. I had to make a choice. I could call for help or risk everything by confronting whatever was waiting for me. Would anyone even hear me scream, though? I stole another glance at the door. There was a faint glow, the light from the peephole flickering softly. It was as if someone was standing right outside, watching. My heart raced. What were they looking for? What did they want from me? Please, just talk to me. I can explain. The desperation in the voice was palpable. It sent a wave of confusion through me. Should I respond? Before I could answer, the door rattled again, more violently now. Open the door. You're in danger. Each word was like a weight sinking in my stomach. I backed away even further and nearly tripped over my coffee table. The AirTag still sat on the counter, glimmering in the faint light. I felt it pulse with energy, as if it were alive and craving attention. Suddenly, the power came back, flooding the room with brightness. I squinted against the sudden glare and zeroed in on the door. Nothing. No shadow. No noise. My heart sank. The figure was gone. But that relief was short-lived when I noticed something new. The AirTag had moved. It was no longer where I'd left it. Chills raced up my spine as I searched the room, looking for it. But it shouldn't have been able to move on its own. Then I spotted it, lying right next to the door, mere inches from where I stood. The back of my neck prickled with unease. Had it been there all along, or had someone placed it there? I leaned down to pick it up when my phone buzzed again. A new message. The same unknown number. You should have listened. In that moment, the reality hit me hard. Someone had been in my apartment, a ghost haunting my life through the very device I thought was harmless. I stood frozen, heart racing, as dread washed over me. That's when I realized I needed to uncover the truth about the AirTag before it was too late. But as I turned to leave the darkness behind, the door creaked open slowly. My heart lurched as the door creaked open, revealing an empty hallway beyond. I swallowed hard, fighting the urge to scream, and focused on the flickering light that had returned to my apartment. It felt almost mocking in its brightness compared to the fear that still coiled inside me. I took a cautious step toward the door, expecting at any moment for someone to rush in. Instead, all I heard was the sound of my own breathing, ragged and shaky. I glanced down at the AirTag in my hand, still feeling its metallic coolness. It seemed innocent, but the way it had moved, somehow, felt far from normal. Stepping into the hallway, I noticed a small slip of paper on the floor where the door had opened. I picked it up, my hands trembling. Written in hurried, frantic strokes were the words, "The AirTag isn't just tracking you. You're part of something much bigger." A chill swept over me. I didn't know if I should call the police or if I should dive deeper into whatever was going on. Abandoning my apartment felt like an escape, but what if this was bigger than me? What if others were involved? I turned back to my apartment. The walls felt like they were closing in on me. I planned to walk to the window, but my foot caught on something hard. I looked down to find a small metallic object half hidden in a corner of the hallway. I crouched down to pick it up, revealing a tiny pin, engraved with a logo I didn't recognize. At that moment, the hallway light flickered, then went dark again, plunging me into shadow. Panic settled in as the sudden silence returned. My pulse raced. In this confined space with my heart pounding like thunder, I felt utterly alone. "Help!" I shouted, hoping someone would hear me, but my voice echoed back at me, swallowed by the darkness. I was about to move back toward my apartment when I heard footsteps approaching. They were slow, deliberate, and getting closer. Every instinct told me to hide, but the only option available was to press myself against the wall and hope. I felt as if I might vanish into the darkness, without a trace. "Are you there?" A voice called softly, just down the hall. It was the same voice I had heard earlier. "You shouldn't ignore this. They're coming for you." I summoned my courage and, too loudly for my own liking, exclaimed, "Who are you?" The footsteps halted, and a shadowy figure emerged, just outside the reach of the light. My heart raced. I couldn't distinguish their features in the darkness, but I could feel an intense energy radiating from where they stood. "Do you know who you're dealing with?" The figure responded, a shaky breath breaking their voice. "You must trust me. The AirTag, it's a marker. You can't ignore it anymore. If you do, you won't just disappear, you'll be erased." Confusion flooded my thoughts. I wanted answers, but I was also terrified of what this person might mean. I took a step back, wondering if I should flee or move closer to the truth. As if reading my mind, the figure took a step forward, the only thing revealing who they were a flash of light from their phone illuminating the contours of their face. I gasped as recognition hit me. This was someone from my past, someone I thought I'd never see again. "Listen to me," they insisted, urgency flooding their tone. "You have to get out of here. It's not safe." And then it all came crashing down, the shadow from before, the messages. I'd become part of something that went deeper than I ever imagined. My life was no longer mine. Before I could respond, I felt a pull in my chest, the AirTag starting to buzz violently. I looked down in shock as it emitted a bright, white light, the only thing I hadn't anticipated. That was when I understood. Whatever was happening was just beginning. The light from the AirTag blazed brighter, illuminating the hallway like a spotlight. I squinted, trying to shield my eyes. It felt like it was buzzing to life, vibrating in my palm, and I struggled to keep my grip on it. The figure stepped forward, their face twisting in a mix of fear and urgency. Do you see? It's activating. They know where you are. They grabbed my arm, pulling me closer. You have to trust me, now. My thoughts raced. Who was this person, and what had I stumbled into? I wanted to shake free from their grip, but dread gnawed at me. The bright light from the AirTag cast eerie shadows that danced along the walls, and I couldn't ignore the fear creeping back into my bones. Who are they? Who is coming for me? I demanded, hoping for clarity. There's no time. The stranger snapped, glancing over their shoulder, eyes wide with panic. People you don't want to meet. They'll take you if you're not careful. I swallowed hard. What kind of danger lay ahead? The last thing I wanted was to step deeper into whatever mess I'd unwittingly involved myself in. But the restlessness inside me urged me to stay, to uncover the truth. Okay, I said, trying to muster courage despite my shaky voice. What do I do? Follow me. We need to get out of here. They tugged at my arm, and I hesitated at first. But the pulse of the AirTag pulled at my instinct. Something was happening that felt beyond me. I nodded. As we moved down the hallway, the air thickened with anticipation. Suddenly, the darkness rushed back in as the lights flickered and died, plunging us into silence. I could feel my heart pound in my ears. I barely stepped back, adrenaline piquing my instinct to flee. Then, a sound like a distant crash echoed through the building. It was followed by hurried footsteps. They weren't ours. I froze, and the stranger cursed under their breath. We have to hurry. They're here. I followed their lead as we sprinted toward the stairs, the AirTag still lighting up, guiding our way like a beacon. I dared to glance back, but there was nothing but dark. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching us from the shadows. When we reached the stairwell, I cast a nervous gaze back at the door we'd left behind. That's when I saw it, faint footprints marking the dusty floor leading away from my apartment, as if someone had been waiting there. A chill coursed through me. My companion must have seen my expression change. We'll figure it out later, they said sharply. Right now, we need to move. I let their words galvanize me as we descended the steps, each thud of our feet echoing in the hollow space. But my mind was a whirlwind. Who were those people chasing us? And what did they want with me? I felt like I was caught in a twisted game with no instructions. We reached the bottom floor, but my pulse raced even faster as the door to the outside world came into view. I pushed through, stepping into the cool night, and took a deep breath. But before I could exhale fully, my companion's phone buzzed violently again. They stared at the screen, and I could see something had changed in their expression. They pinpointed your location, they grimaced. We must get moving fast. Fear hit me like a punch to the gut. I glanced around but saw no immediate threats. It was just us and the dark night ahead. The truth I was desperate for felt closer than ever, but it was now paired with something far more frightening, a new urgency to discover who was pulling the strings, and how I was entangled in their web. The chill of the night air pushed against my skin as I stepped into the open space outside the building. Shadows loomed, stretching across the cracked pavement like elongated fingers. My companion was still gripping my arm, pulling me along without hesitation, and I had no choice but to follow. Where do we go? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Just trust me. We need to reach the alley behind those shops, they replied, pointing down the street. Their urgency was contagious, and I nodded, trying to take in the surroundings while I ran. As we sprinted, my mind raced with questions, each one more pressing than the last. What people were they talking about? Was I really in danger, or was this some wild misunderstanding? My nerves felt frayed, but I forced myself to focus on the path ahead. Then, a flicker of movement caught my eye. A group of figures emerged from the shadows at the far end of the street, hunched over, and moving with purpose. I could see silhouettes, their outlines sharp against the dim streetlights. Panic surged through me. Are they the ones? I gasped, my breath coming in quick, shaky bursts. Yes. We need to go now. My companion's grip tightened around my arm, urging me forward faster. I could hear their heart racing, matching the rhythm of my own. With no time to waste, we dashed into the alley. A pungent smell of trash mixed with the cool breeze filled my lungs. The dimness enveloped us, but I felt a momentary sense of reprieve. At least the figures wouldn't be able to see us here. We halted, leaning against the damp brick wall. My heart thumped in my chest, and I struggled to catch my breath. The alley felt claustrophobic, with shadows pressing in from all sides. Do you think they saw us? I whispered, barely able to contain the tremble in my voice. They can track you, my companion said hurriedly, scrolling through their phone again. The AirTag. We need to get you away from that device. What do you mean? AirTags are meant for finding lost things. But if someone else used one to track you, we need to destroy it. Now. I glanced down at the luminous device in my palm, its light flickering like a tiny heartbeat. It felt easy to dismiss, a mere gadget until this moment. How do we get rid of it? Before they could answer, a new sound pierced the air. Footsteps approached, too close for comfort. I held my breath, fear surging through my veins. I could see shadows moving again, closer now. The figures had found us. Not wanting to be cornered, I shifted my focus to my companion. What do we do? The stranger looked around, eyes wide with urgency. There's a door at the end of the alley. It might lead to the basement of that store. It's a escape route. We shared a glance, knowing we had little time left. I pushed myself off the wall, ready to dash again. But just as we turned to run, something glimmered in the dark. A flash of metal caught my attention, and my heart dropped. Wait, I whispered, my voice barely audible. What's that? My companion followed my gaze, and their face went pale. I stepped forward, drawn to it, teeth on edge with apprehension. It was a small knife, gleaming ominously at our feet, and my stomach churned. Then, without warning, I heard a voice coming from the shadows. Don't move. I froze, my heart hammering in my chest, fear twisting in my gut. The threat was real now, and there would be no escaping without repercussions. Looks like we caught ourselves a couple of rats. The words hung heavy in the air, sending a shiver racing down my spine. Now, I felt I had crossed a line I couldn't step back from. The real game was just beginning. The voice stepped into view, accompanied by two others, all shrouded in darkness but clearly defined as threats. They moved like predators, eyes scanning us with a menacing focus. I felt like prey, and panic surged through me again. Who are you? I managed to croak out, though I could guess the answer. One of them grinned, revealing teeth that gleamed in the faint light. You already know what we're after, he said, his voice smooth but tainted with malice. That little tracking device you've got. Hand it over. My breathing quickened. What do you want with it? I asked, desperation creeping into my tone. Let's just say it's worth a lot to certain people. He stepped closer, and I instinctively pulled back, my back hitting the damp brick wall. There was nowhere to go. So, what's it gonna be? You give it to me, or we can do this the hard way. The alley felt smaller, the walls closing in around me. My companion shifted beside me, contemplating our next move. I could feel the tension radiating off them. We can't trust them, they whispered urgently. We don't have a choice, I whispered back. If we can distract them. Suddenly, the man in front of me lunged forward. I reacted purely on instinct, bringing the AirTag up, ready to hurl it. But before I could act, my companion stepped in, shoving me to the side. No! The knife gleamed again, cutting through the tension as it flashed in the air. You're really not in a position to negotiate, the leader sneered, glancing between us. Now, do you want to give it up, or do we make this ugly? I felt a surge of anger. How had I gotten myself into this? All because of a small device I hadn't even asked for. If you want it, come take it, I snapped, holding it tightly in my hand. That's a bad choice, rat, he growled, lunging toward me. In that moment, everything became chaotic. My companion lunged forward, tackling him to the ground. The sudden shock of movement sent the knife skidding across the pavement. I gasped, frozen as they struggled on the ground. A second attacker charged at me. I bolted to the side, adrenaline coursing through me as I scrambled for the door at the end of the alley. It was now or never. I could hear shouting behind me, the scuffle raging on, but the door handle felt warm and inviting under my fingers. Just then, I caught a glimpse of my companion struggling against the leader. Their face twisted in pain as they managed to kick him away. Go! They shouted, their voice laced with urgency. I didn't need to be told twice. I yanked the door open and rushed inside, praying I wasn't sealing my fate. The sound of footsteps behind me drove me forward. I dashed down a dim staircase, the wooden steps creaking beneath my weight. But the moment I got to the bottom, something cold and metallic jabbed against my back. Stop right there. I froze, terror flooding my veins. The real game was far from over, and I realized I had just stepped deeper into a trap I didn't know existed. I stood frozen, the cool metal pressing against my back made my heart race. My instincts screamed at me to act, but I was paralyzed by fear and uncertainty. I slowly turned my head, the dim light from above casting a weak glow over my captor. A woman stood before me, her expression unreadable. She was tall, clad in dark clothing that blended into the shadows behind her. Drop it, she ordered, her voice steady and controlled. I hesitated, weighing my options. The AirTag felt like a lifeline in my hand, but I knew I didn't stand a chance against this woman. What do you want? I managed to ask, my voice shaky. I want what you took from the alley. The tracker, she repeated, her eyes narrowing. Hand it over, and I might let you walk out of here. That drew out hesitation and indignation. And if I don't? I asked, trying to sound braver than I felt. Then things will get very complicated for you. Her gaze bore into me, and I could sense the danger radiating from her presence. I thought about my companion. Had they gotten away? Were they safe? Or had they fallen victim to these people as well? Panic squeezed at my chest. I couldn't let them down. I had to find a way out, not just for me, but for them. Before I could process my next move, the dim light flickered, sending a wave of shadows across the room. I took a small step back, the AirTag still clutched tightly in my palm. And that's when I saw it, a figure lurking in the doorway behind the woman. The dim glow of the hallway illuminated just enough to show the outline of another person, watching me with an intensity that matched my own fear. Are you coming or not? The woman snapped, breaking my train of thought. I quickly made a decision. Fine, just let me go, I said, raising the AirTag slowly, as if to placate her. But then, as I felt the pressure of the moment, I knew I had to act. I tossed the AirTag across the room. It clattered against the wall, skidding into the darkness beyond. Go get it, I shouted, heart racing as I made my move. In a flash, she lunged toward the sound, leaving her back exposed for just a moment. I took that chance and bolted past her, adrenaline igniting my limbs. Stop! She screamed, but I didn't look back. I sprinted toward the door, the echo of her footsteps following me like a hunter chasing down its prey. I burst into the hallway, my mind racing for a plan, any plan. There were doors lining the walls, and I skidded to a halt, trying to figure out which way to go. That's when I heard voices, not the men from before, but something else, a conversation I couldn't quite make out. Then the faint sound of a scuffle erupted from one of the rooms. My heart sank. I wasn't alone anymore. I had entered a den of predators, where trust was a luxury I could no longer afford. Let them go. A voice shouted from behind a door, and it hit me like a punch to the gut. My companion was in trouble, and I had to choose, fight or flight. I slipped toward the door, ready to take a deep breath and plunge back into danger. Whatever happened next would change everything. I pressed myself against the wall, the heat of my panic mixing with the cold of the concrete. The muffled shouts behind the door fueled every frantic thought spiraling in my mind. My companion was in there, and I couldn't abandon them, not now, not ever. I had to do something. My hands trembled as I reached for the doorknob, my mind racing through dozens of scenarios. What if I opened the door and walked into a trap? What if I found nothing but silence? But then I heard another cry, a sound of desperation mixed with fear. It was enough to push me over the edge. I twisted the knob and pushed the door open, my heart pounding in my chest. The sight before me was chaotic. A dimly lit room, the shadows of two figures wrestling on the floor, furniture knocked haphazardly out of place. My companion was struggling against one of the men I thought had been chasing us earlier. No! I shouted, my voice stronger than I felt. I stepped into the room, ready to fight. The man turned, a flash of surprise crossing his face. For a second, I considered using the surprise to my advantage. But before I could even take a step, he lunged toward me, throwing me to the ground. Pain jolted through my shoulder, and I gasped, but I quickly rolled to the side, managing to get to my feet. Get away from them! I yelled, adrenaline pushing me forward. I spotted a nearby chair and grabbed it, raising it like a makeshift weapon. The man glared at me, assessing, then shifted his focus back to my companion. I saw their eyes wide with fear but also determined. They were holding their own, and I couldn't let that go to waste. With a fierce battle cry, I swung the chair. It connected with a dull thud against the man's side, knocking him off balance. He stumbled back, and my companion seized the moment, pushing themselves free from his grip. Now! They shouted, looking at me with fierce determination. We dashed toward the exit, but as we turned to flee, the woman from before appeared in the doorway behind us, her expression a storm of rage. Before I knew it, she lunged forward, blocking our path. No! I screamed, scrambling to find another way out. My heart raced, and I felt panic inching back in, but there wasn't time to think. I turned, scanning the room for any exit. To my left, I caught a glimpse of a window. It was small, maybe not meant for escape, but it could be our only chance. Quick! I yelled, glancing back at the woman, who was now barreling towards us with an intensity that sent ice sliding down my spine. I shoved my companion toward the window, forcing them to move. We had to make it. We had to get out before it was too late. As I reached for the window latch, I heard another voice, this one deeper, a low growl that made my skin crawl. Where do you think you're going? A chill ran through me as I turned to face a new threat, blocking our way out. Suddenly, the room felt smaller, the walls closing in. This was no longer just a fight for escape. It was a battle for survival. The figure in the doorway loomed larger than life, their silhouette a menacing shape in the dim light. I felt my resolve begin to slip away under the weight of desperation. My heart pounded as I glanced back at my companion, who was breathing heavily, processing the gravity of our situation. Get the window open! I shouted, the urgency in my voice drowning out the fear that threatened to suffocate me. Time felt like it was slipping through my fingers. The window may have been our only way out, and I couldn't afford to hesitate. My companion scrambled to the window, fumbling with the latch, frustration etching deep lines on their face. I shifted my position, my back now against the wall as I faced the oncoming threat. "Get back!" I screamed, raising the chair like a shield between us and the figure. They took a step forward, the light catching the cold glimmer of metal in their hand, a knife. My stomach twisted in knots as I fought the urge to recoil. "Enough," the woman said, her voice steady, a sharp contrast to the chaos in the room. "You can't escape from this." "Watch me," I retorted. With adrenaline coursing through me, I swung the chair with all my might, the wood connecting with her arm. She gritted her teeth but didn't flinch. Instead, a savage smile spread across her face. "You should have thought this through, kid." The moment momentarily stunned her. It granted my companion the chance they needed to shout, "I got it." I turned just in time to see them shove the window open, pushing one leg out to test the height. My heart raced. "You first," I urged, desperate to get us both through without any more detours. But as they began to clamber through, the woman regained her composure and lunged towards me again. "No!" I barely managed to sidestep her, my instincts kicking in. In the frantic chaos, I knocked over a lamp, sending it crashing to the ground. The noise echoed, a distraction that bought us mere seconds. My companion was halfway out of the window now, and I pushed towards them. "Come on!" I rasped, hoping they'd pull me through too before the looming danger caught up with us both. "Go!" they shouted, urging me to jump through. The knife-wielding figure had regained her balance and wasn't far behind. I heaved myself out, arms bracing against the rough edge of the window as I kicked my legs free. But before I could fully escape, I felt a hand grasp my ankle. Panic set in as I pushed off instinctively, shaking her grip loose. I lost my balance for a moment but tumbled down, landing hard on the ground beside my companion. We were outside, but my victory was short-lived. I heard her shout in disbelief behind us, and I glanced back just in time to see her emerge through the window, fury etched on her features. Without hesitating, we broke into a sprint down the gritty alleyway, our feet pounding against the pavement. "This way," I urged, hoping it would lead us away from whatever darkness was chasing us. As the cool night air filled my lungs, I could feel the pounding of my heart resonate in the silence, the near escape stoking the adrenaline still surging through me. I didn't know how far we ran, or even if we were truly free, but I couldn't afford to look back. The threat loomed large in my mind. I ducked into another alley, my companion right beside me. "What do we do now?" they gasped, their eyes wide, reflecting the havoc swirling in my own thoughts. I don't know. The truth was slipping through my fingers, just like the senses I had earlier about danger. We had nearly become pawns in someone else's game. "We need to find somewhere safe to regroup, to think." "I can't believe she was after you for that AirTag," they replied, shaking their head in disbelief. "What is it?" I asked, confused. "What does it mean?" But before they could respond, we both froze. We heard footsteps again, but these were distinct, methodical. We moved deeper into the shadows, holding our breath, but the tension knotted in my midst. A part of me was relieved we had escaped for now. Yet an unsettling feeling settled over me. "What if they're still coming for you?" my companion whispered, voice trembling. "I don't know," I admitted, the truth heavy in my chest. I still hadn't pieced together just how crucial the AirTag was, what had really put this danger in motion. As the footsteps faded, we found a small door, a weathered wooden entrance barely visible in the darkness. It looked abandoned, but it was our only option. I hesitated before turning the knob. There was so much I didn't understand, so many questions left unanswered. Every turn felt like an unraveling of something far more profound than either of us could grasp. Stepping through the door felt like an escape into the unknown. But somehow, I understood this wasn't over. Far from it. As we locked it behind us, the uncertainty hung in the air thick. We couldn't afford to dwell on what had transpired, but neither could we ignore it. In that moment, I realized the chase had begun, and the road ahead was fraught with unending questions that may never have answers. The night, full of shadow and echoes, loomed just outside, waiting to reclaim us when we least expected it. I moved deeper into the unknown, embracing the disquieting truth: nothing would ever be the same.